everybody, it is I, Ryan, host of DM Told Me To, as always. Back here with the third installment of the Auroman update. This is a day or two late, and I'm sorry about that, guys, but it turns out that on Sunday, my family all got COVID, except for me, so that's what we were dealing with, and the normal upload would have been up, so sorry about that. But, anywho, I'm here with an update on things for us, so let's get into it. It should be pretty cool. So, not a ton of stuff, but I think we have the, if not the basic rules, pretty much done at this point, right? Like, if I'm thinking about it here. So let's go through and I'll show you. And I added some more features into the book too. So we got our cover page, right? As always, you can check this out on YouTube by going to DM Told Me To on YouTube, and you can watch the video there to see what I'm going on my screen. Otherwise, if you just listen, that's absolutely fine as well. Okay. The links should be down below as well to check this out, so you can just read it over if you'd like, or you can watch what I'm doing. Anyway, let's go down and see. All right, so first thing, I made a table of contents because I figured as this book's going to get bigger, and someday I'm assuming people will want to print this. And I'll be printing it, or next finish too, because that'll be fun to have. But so I figured I'll do table of contents. It gives basically introductory note, right? First section is creating an Auromancer, parentheses page 2. Talked about all those stuff that we talked about before with the class paths, all the special stuff. Number 2, acquiring an Auromon. Do something for this week, right? For this episode. Page 7, it mentions about seal breaking, getting Auromon from the wild, getting up for bosses and duelists, single shops, fusions, and then questing / aid. After that is the third section of the book, which is battles, which is page 9. So I go into a lot of the details on how battling system in this works. Yeah, so we have a gold sheet for us to start for this one. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. All right, so let's get going. Let's scroll down quick. Show introductory note. I updated as more people help out with the project, and I mentioned more details to it. Otherwise, it's been the same as it's been. I've not changed anything for number 1. I've kept everything the same here. I've moved stuff around. It's just to make stuff fit a little nicer, but I didn't mention that too much there. Enhanced backgrounds are still there. Oh yeah, I have to fix something with the formatting of the bottom of the Celestial class path. Some of the bullets travel to the top and the other side, so I'll just have to go through and maybe cut a sentence or a word out somewhere to try to make it fit a little better. It's really annoying that I can't just make one thing fit, but what are you gonna do? Okay. Oh, added a picture here by Goku King 922. Shout out, my man. It looks amazing. A rough picture too. I know he said he's gonna be making some updates to it, but wanted to share that here with the people to see. And yeah, I got his permission. He said he was totally cool with having me in the book. So when he finishes, I think the picture's gonna go right here, right after the class paths, because I think that's a cool way to just show discovering of a card, things like that. So thank you, Goku King. If any of you guys out there are artists or feel like you want to draw and have your pictures be put in here, I am all for it. So DM me on Discord, join the Reddit down below where people can share images of things, and if I like them, I'll reach out to the artist and I'll put them in the book and stuff. It'll be cool. Yeah, so if you want to have your name in an official book, well, not official, I shouldn't say official, but in a homebrew variant book that I would assume would get traction as people play and enjoy it more, and always have people see it to know that you were a part of this project. I'm game. I will put it there. And like I said, I'll put your name by the bottom that you can see there. So for those that are listening, we basically drew a person and they're have this Auroman card that's flying up towards them, they're getting it, which is pretty cool. So anyway, that's all still 1. All right. New stuff. Number 2, section 2 of the book, right? Acquiring an Auromon. With the world of Auroman being vast and filled with a multitude of creatures known as Auromon, as an Auromancer, you're able to harness those Auromon to aid you in your tasks. There's many ways to acquire Auromon. So, first one, seal breaking. One of the best ways to get Auromon cards is from purchasing packs from around the world. Depending on your tier of play, will determine what packs you get access to. Certain packs will be offered from the following tiers. So, I've decided to do packs this way. That way, creatures of certain challenge ratings can only appear in certain packs. That way, not a level 2 player doesn't get a Red Ancient Dragon card and just dominate the battlefield, right? I mean, it's some sort of balance here. So the first tier is when players' levels are 1 through 4. Second tier is when players' levels are 5 through 10. Third tier is players' levels 11 to 16. And fourth tier is when players' levels 17 to 20. So in each of these brackets or tiers of play, if you want to look at it that way, there will be cards, there'll be packs of cards based on creatures that are appropriate for for people that skill to fight or see like out in the wild, right? Like you'd see in normal D&D. That way it just helps avoid the whole, oh, I'm a level 2 player and I'm going to summon a red ancient dragon, like I said. So each tier will have its own set of card packs that the players will unlock as they reach the next tiers. These packs are combinations of Auroman creatures, and spells. Let me go through quick. I'm just going to change the wording on this. Yeah, I'm noticing things as I'm looking at this now. So I'm going to quickly say, saying Auroman creatures, I guess, is fine, right? Because it shows the actual creatures of the world are in the packs. Like, so you'll get actual units, like stuff you can summon to fight with, and spells. So, for example, a second tier player will be able to access first and second tier card packs. Some of the parts here, I'm just going to be like, yes, Ryan, that makes sense. You don't have to put that sentence. But I'm trying to make it be as easy as I can for people that don't understand totally what's going on. You know, because you gotta understand, people that have been following this, you've seen every week, you've seen me do the updates in the book, you see me do different installments and things every week. Someday, if I'm gonna release this book that I made up on like DM's Guild or something, you know, nobody's gonna see those videos, I mean, unless they're tryhard fans and watch it again, in which case, if you're here, shout out. But anyway, people are going to be just looking at this book for the first time. They're going to be like, how does this game work? What's going on? Right. So that's where by having those features of me breaking it down very simply and trying to give examples and clarifying, it's to help alleviate some of that confusion. So this allows players to try new and stronger creatures and spells to summon, while in addition allowing them to strengthen their older cards through fusions. So each card pack, let me just fix that quick. Yeah, so what that means is basically, right, you get access to second tier cards, and you can still access first tier card packs too, because that way if you want to keep buying a pack that you know has a creature that you really like, and you want to get lucky and keep rolling it to then fuse it and to make it be a really strong creature because you really like the unit and just think it looks cool, you know, then you certainly can do that. You're not like limited to just being stuck with buying, oh, now I'm second tier, I can only buy second tier packs. That's all. So, anywho, Each card pack for the Auromancer to open and break the seal of contains usually 10 cards in it, consisting of 5 common rarity cards, 3 uncommon rarity cards, 1 spell card, and 1 rare/epic/legendary card. So, 10 cards. Pretty self-explanatory there. The rarity of the last card in a pack varies by card pack. I'm gonna put that in there. Card packs can be found in the card pack section of this module, which shows the tables players may roll from to see which cards they open from a pack on page X. I have a page X because on my notes, I've been working on behind the scenes on making them, at least making lists of monsters. Little spoiler, evolutions for some monsters. I don't know if I mentioned that here much, but we've been talking about a lot on the Discord. So if you're not a part of that yet and you want to be involved, definitely check it out. So once that page gets put in the module, I'm going to put right below seal breaking, like, hey, here's the page number you can check out to see what's in card packs, right? Because I figured let people be able to, as you read that, then you can flip through the book and go right there. You don't have to go back to table of contents. You don't have to jumble around. You can just go right to the page because I'm putting it there for you. All right, so that's breaking up the card packs in a nutshell, right? Basically what will happen is each pack will have a table of X things that'll be under columns for common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, etc., depending on what level tier players are at. Because not every creature in D&D is equal, right? So if the tier of the players is rightfully so for levels 1 through 4. Now, there's some creatures that are actually quite strong for those young level things to deal with, especially and just in the normal monster manual. I know Volvo's guide has a lot of things where their CR challenge rating should be a little higher, but you know. Anywho, by opening up card packs, it lets you be able to get a bigger collection, and you can do stuff. I have now thought of something that I need to add to acquiring Auromon, but we'll get to that later on. Anywho, from the wild. As you explore in this world of Auromon, you will come across wild Auromon that may, I gotta change that there, that may attack you. See, as I look at this and I read this stuff out loud with you guys here, I'm able to fix stuff, so. Wild Auromon have a chance to drop themselves as cards upon being defeated. When a wild Auromon gets defeated, have each player who helped to defeat it roll a d100 to see if they get any cards from it. Depending on the chances to drop is dependent on that creature's CR. Evolved creatures only drop as their basic forms. So as creatures evolve, they can only drop themselves as their basic forms. Spell cards drops are random ones that the Auromon could have cast, chosen by the DM, right? So, because every creature that can cast spells knows some spells, knows a lot, knows a little bit of spells, so to make it easy, I just said, okay. It's up to DM's discretion on what spell that you get. They could probably just have you roll for it from the enemy creature's spell list, right? They could be like, okay, this creature knows like 4 spells, give me a d4, we'll see which one you get. Now, those at home that are listening, that are watching it on the thing, I'm going to explain the table to you here. So, Auroman CRs, I broke them up from 0 to 4, 5 to 10, 11 to 16, 17 to 20. That might be adjusted. I just kind of did it to base off of closely to the player's perspective, right? So you can kind of assume that depending on your tier, you'll have access to the 0 to 4 CR range, the 5 to 10 CR range, etc. So, in the 0 to 4 Auroman CR range, that's the basic stuff you want out in the wild, Auroman creature drop chance. Everyone rolls a d100, anybody rolls a 60 or higher, you get a copy of that card. It flies to you, you get to add it to your binder, your collection, etc. If you roll a 75 or higher, if they're a spellcaster, or a creature that can cast spells by some divine power of maybe a pixie casting polymorph, if you will, right? For example, you get a 75. If you roll a 75 and a d100, you get that. And then they proceed to increase by 10 each time. So, levels Auroman CR of 5 to 10, drop chance of 70. You mean like you need to roll a 70 or higher on the d100 to get its card. 11 to 16, you need to roll an 80 or higher, and then 17 to 20, you need to roll a 90 or higher to get a creature card drop from a creature of that caliber. Spell card drop chance, right? All of them increase by 10. 5 to 10 is you need to roll 85 or higher. 11 to 16, you need to roll 90 or higher. 17 to 20, you need to roll a 95 or higher to get access to a spell from their list. Because high level spells in D&D are really good, right? Like Meteor Swarm, Wish, etc. So, to not lower the chances of players getting them, but to make it be really difficult for them to get it, there's that. Now, hopefully after I do this installment in this thing, I have to decide what I want to work on next. If I should work on the monster tableaus, if I should work on the spell list, if I should work on card packs, if I should work on items you could get, right? There's a lot of different stuff that could contribute to this. So an item idea I was potentially thinking about putting in is an item card that lets you get +5 to your card drop roll. So you have a higher chance of getting a card drop. Could be a pretty cool item. Anyway. So, little spoilers for stuff worked on behind the scenes. Okay, next way of acquiring an Auroman is bosses/duelists. So, with exploring dungeons, some boss Auroman are sentient and may, instead of attacking you like other wild Auroman would, they may themselves be Auromancers and possess decks of their own. So, for example, right? If you're fighting, and this is up to DM discretion too, right? So if you're fighting like the general of an army of goblins, right? Maybe it's the hobgoblin chieftain or something. They could then summon stuff with their own deck of their own creatures to fight the players. Pretty cool, right? So from defeating them in a duel, players can still roll to see if they give them any cards, just like they would for a wild Auroman based on the enemy's CR. You beat up a hobgoblin boss or hobgoblin chieftain, depending on what his CR is. Do you get him as air quotes, let me rephrase, not exactly him, copy of him, as a card that you can then summon in a fight? If you roll well enough, sure. Now that one's not going to be a duelist like the wild one is, but still pretty cool. So, and this is entirely up to playgroups. This next part here, this is entirely up to playgroups if they'd like to do antes. So for friendly duels or tournaments, players can do antes as a form of an extra reward on top of other rewards Antes consists of each player rolling for a random card from their deck to be given to the winner before a battle commences. It can help players build their decks more or possibly lose their key cards to make their decks function. So I want to put antes in here as a way for players to be like, hey, let's say that some kid, let's say that and this game mode can be played in any fashion, right? So let's say it's like a guild hall, for example. Let's say that there's one guy who's always picking on you and stuff, and you guys go at it, and he's like, and you notice he maybe notices that you opened an epic card in a card pack and he wants it, right? So he'll be like, all right, I'll challenge you to a fight. Let you prove yourself that you're good enough against me. Well, you offer up that epic card you got, and I'll offer up this. And he offers up like a card that maybe is like a proxy, like not a real card or whatever, but you don't know that right at the time. So you guys can then fight, and whoever wins the fight gets the other person's card. Think of it as like people that play marbles, right? I think marbles is a good example, or people play marbles nowadays. But people always would like play antes or in the schoolyard as a kid, you know? And so could be a fun thing. Obviously, it's up to playgroups. You want to incorporate that? Sure. Players be like, oh, no. I worked for these cards. I don't want to lose them in any way, shape, or fashion, even if it's random chance. Then, okay, fine. Don't play with antes. That's totally cool. I just wanted to give the option up there for people to think about it if they never thought of it before. DMs can also arrange tournaments where players could face other duelists to win exclusive Auromon cards or spells. Other ideas can include DMs introducing alternative art of Auromon cards if they want to include homebrew creatures into the game as well. So, yeah. I just want to fix it as well. So, what that means, right? Let's say that you guys are doing a tournament and there's a goblin surfer dude that you could get instead of the run-of-the-mill goblin. And the surfer dude has an aquatic speed, which makes him special. And his card art is something like a normal goblin. Maybe the DM was able to throw on some clip art on the card and have him holding a surfboard instead of like a weapon or something. And now he's a surfing goblin. It's a special like limited prize thing for winning the tournament. So could be a fun little thing. Like I said, there's a lot of ways for people to explore and expand on this, especially if they like collectible card games and they like creatures and monsters of D&D. And this allows people to play with homebrew creatures, which I'm going to drop this in a little bit right here. I am working on the Patreon and the back scenes for this. I'm going to make a tier B. Every month that you're part of this tier, you get to submit to me one like creature, maybe build your own pack to be included in the book. Get to do all this stuff where you get to include your own information into the book by being at a certain tier in the Patreon. So I'm almost done working on that. That's still behind the scenes. When that releases, I'll let you know, and I'll put the links on all of the videos up till here. Because that way, if you're like, yeah, you know, I have extra few dollars a month, I'll drop it to the cause, and I get to include my own homebrew creature into the world. Okay, Ryan, let's see. What do I like? What do I think would be cool? So by doing that, then you can have your own like little nugget in the game, and I think it'd be cool for players to be able to someday be like, yeah, you know, I worked on this project. Hey, that creature, I added that creature. Maybe like your play group has a little reference they made where one time they befriended a goblin and they named him like Guffy, and they're like, I want to include Guffy the Goblin into here so that if I replace my play group, they can see that that's in like somebody's official book that they made little Guffy the Goblin. You know, I think it'd be a really cool thing. Anywho, singles shop. So as you're collecting your multitude of cards in your binder, and you may want to, as you're collecting your multitude of cards in your binder, you may want to sell some for money that you may not have any need for. Right. So certain classes, like we discussed in episode 2 of the series, right, where I'm building a deck this way. Maybe it's for my background. Maybe it's for my class. Maybe it's for all these things. So if I get a card and it does not work for me and no other player really kind of wants it, right, then might as well try to get them ready to sell, you know. Or if you look at the stat block, because some cards in D&D, right, they might be like, now that you're level 2, now that you're the second tier, you know, you're getting stronger creatures. So your first tier creatures that you haven't really built much of, like, yeah, maybe I have like 4 or 5 like crabs, but I don't like need them. Now I'm second tier, you know, I'll just go gather a few stuff and sell them. So here's what you do. These will be adjusted after playtesting. Again, like I said, made this disclaimer tons of times. A lot of stuff in this book might change due to playtesting. That's okay. That's okay. At least having it here as a general thing so people can see, I think is great. So around the world, there are places to buy and sell single cards. Due to single cards being specific, they cost more to buy than if you were to sell them. Obviously, right? You go to a store, any Magic the Gathering shop, comic book shop, whatever. You go to sell a card, you're going to get half price than if you were to just buy it. That's how economy works, right? That's how money works, unfortunately. But in the game, it has to be the same way, because otherwise, then players could trade in every garbage they find for a premium card that they need. So the ready breakdown for selling is as follows. You can cash in 10 commons for 1 gold piece, 6 uncommons for 1 gold piece, 1 spell for 1 gold piece, 1 rare for 1 gold piece, 1 epic for 3 gold pieces, 1 legendary creature for 50 gold pieces, 1 mythical for 200 gold pieces. You might be like, Ryan, there's no mythical on the card pack opening list, and that's because mythicals are from special events and whatnot, and will be discussed later on in another installment of the book. So We'll get to those later, but I at least wanted to put it here because it'll be a type of creature that you can sell for. So, anyhow, as far as pack prices, like I said, different packs depending on their rarity, depending on their themes. Some might be more specific to certain elements of the world. Some might be specific to other things. That's why they'll range in prices. So there's not like a definitive every pack costs this much. You know what I mean? So, basically, if you open 2 10-card packs, get a rare. Right, let's do the math quick. Cash in all the commons, cash in all the uncommons. That's 2 gold pieces. Cash in your 2 spells. That's 2 more gold pieces. Cash in your 2 rares. You have 6 gold back. So, I mean, you could bet that the packs are probably going to cost at minimum 10. So there's some loss there, but you know, you get an epic, and I might change the epic price because epics are going to be a little harder to get. Actually, I think right now that we're talking about, I'm going to change epic to selling for 10 because epics are going to be harder to get, so I feel like if you could potentially trade in an epic, like in the real world, right? If you play Magic Gathering, you play the things. If you trade in like a really expensive card that's in the meta or it's a really good card, you're going to get money back to be able to buy a pack. You know what I mean? So I figure that's fair. Now, we're already back down to buying singles as follows. You want to buy 1 common from it. Like, let's say you go to a singles card shop in your world that you're playing for this game, right? They're selling commons, uncommons, spells, rares, epics, legendaries. We'll see. Whatever they got. Want to buy 1 common? One gold piece. Pretty easy. 1 uncommon, 5 gold pieces. Costs. 1 spell is 15 gold pieces, so now we're breaking the threshold of a pack, right? And here's what it comes down to. You can risk it for the biscuit and roll to try to see if you get that uncommon you want by buying. We have 3 rolls to try to get it from the list of however many each card pack has. But the thing about that is, or you could just spend half your money on the card pack instead and buy the uncommon that you want if it's being sold. See what I'm saying? You kind of got to gauge your thing and be like, oh yeah, no, I need that. I need that guard. I need that guard that's a good nature because of my Celestial class. Okay, yeah, that's an uncommon, whatever. I need 5 gold pieces instead of me risking it for more cards over less cards. I'll buy that one that I know I need, you know? 1 spell is 15 gold pieces, so more than probably the minimum pack of 10 is the 15 gold piece for a spell, because it's like spells are pretty good in this format, in this game. Spells are pretty good, because any player will be able to cast almost any spell, technically. You'll just be having a buff or a buff or a hindrance, depending on which class you are, right? So, spells are 15. If you want a specific rare, that'll be 20 gold. So the price of 2 10 gold minimum packs will be a specific rare you want, but chances are rares are pretty good than commons. So epic for 30 gold, legendary for 500 gold, mythical for 1,000 gold. Like I said, stuff will be changed, stuff will be adjusted. We'll have to see how things look, but that's where they stand right now. Anywho, next thing, fusions. Combining cards is an essential skill that all Auromancers have the power to do. By going to a fusion sigil, they are able to combine duplicates of cards they've discovered in their travels to enhance their abilities. As cards gain levels, some can evolve into stronger variants of themselves. These can be seen in the Creature Almanac on page X in the module. Again, I'll put the page thing for you can see the Creature module, or the Creature Almanac of this entire set. So you can see, okay, I got a crab. If I fuse it up to level 4, it evolves into King Crustacean, or whatever it be. Okay? To fuse, you need to take your base card and combine it with duplicates / pre-evolutions of the card in order to have it raise a level. Once you fuse your Auromon up to levels 4 and 7, some have evolutionary lines and will evolve into stronger versions of themselves. When your Auromon evolves, you will use its new stat block for statistics. Right, because obviously it's basically a brand new creature, so it has all new stats. So example, here's an example of how fusing is gonna work in this game. Okay, let's take 2 level 1 crab cards and bring it to a fusion sigil. Those 2 cards, or they both, will combine together, and a new level 2 crab card. They both will combine together, and a new level 2 crab card is made. A second. And a new level 2 crab card is made. In order to make a level 3 crab, you need to take that level 2 crab card and combine it with 2 more level 1 or 2 crab cards. By combining a total of 3 cards, you make a level 3. And so on. You want to make a level 4? You have to take that level 3 crab, combine them with 3 other levels 1 through 2 to 3, what have you, crabs, and then those 4 cards morph together into one level 4 crab. Okay? Same as for spells. So spells is where stuff gets a little interesting, right? So when you combine the same spell to become a higher level, if the spell says it increases its effect at higher levels, then when it reaches that said level, it now counts as being casted at that level. So this is where stuff gets a little crazy, right? So the same is true for casting a spell at a higher spell slot. You can cast your spells at those spell slots based on its level, but not higher, obviously, right? So in D&D, classes have spell slots, right? Of how strong you can cast a spell, and some spells get stronger as you get stronger, like cantrips and things. Here's an example that will hopefully help break down fusions that I've included as well. If you take your level 4 cantrip Firebolt and combine it with 4 other level X, parentheses, of any level, and parentheses, other Firebolt cards, you now have a single level 5 Firebolt card. It now reads, instead of 1d10 damage, it deals 2d10 because of the spell reaching a higher level. If it needed spell slots, you could cast it using a 5th level spell slot due to it being level 5. So in this game, instead of spell slots, you just have your spell cards, right? Spells do not evolve, but rather get stronger as they would if they reach that level in their description. So if a spell says at player level X, this thing now deals more damage, or at this level, you get to do this, this, and this if you cast it at that level. Well, by you combining these cards to make higher level things, thus you can cast spells at higher levels. Now, I know this sounds like a lot, and always being able to cast a X spell at level 5 or 6 for every fight if you draw it as the spell card, that's great because you can always do that. But you gotta understand this as well, that spells are probably some of the hardest type of cards to get in the game, right? You get one spell from a card pack, you have a chance to drop it from an enemy. So to get duplicates to level something up to that high, we'll get to the fusion table right here so I can show you, right? So at level 1, so the first column for Auroman, I have a table here called Auroman Fusions, right? It says levels 1 through 9. A card or creature cannot go beyond level 9, such as a spell not being able to go beyond level 9. Makes sense, right? Additional cards needed to level up. So, level 1, you look at the level 1, you have a level 1 card, and you go to the additional cards needed to level up 1. Is there an evolution at level, which is the third column? No. So that means when I reach that level, it's not going to evolve. To get it to go from level 1, additional cards needed to level up, you need +1. So it means I have my level 1 card, I need one of any other level 1 card, fuse them together, level 2. Additional cards needed to level up from 2, you take your level 2, +2 of anything else. 2 additional cards needed to level up. You need 2 additional cards, bam, now you have a level 3, and so forth. I tried to make it be pretty simple, that you take the card that's your level of the thing you're trying to fuse up, and you need to grab duplicates of it, of that, or if it's pre-evolution or of lower levels. Take all those, fuse them together, bam, you had this. So, to get a creature up to level 4, you need to have 6 duplicates of it. Obviously for spells, that's a lot harder to do than to be creatures, right? So, you have a level 4 creature reaches level 4 upon being... Okay, let me rephrase. My apologies. You take your card that you've been leveling up, and you need 6 additional copies of that to be fused with it. So you need 7 total copies of a card to get it to level 4. When it reaches level 4, does it evolve? Yes. I have a new card. It's evolved now. Let's say your crab becomes King Crustacean, like we talked about earlier. Your King Crustacean now needs 4 crab cards, or King Crustacean cards, of level 4 or less, fuse with them to now make him a level 5, and so forth. Level 7 will evolve again. So, you guys are pretty cool. Might be like, why would you go beyond 7 for 8 and 9? Well, creatures as they get higher are going to unlock new abilities, and I'm going to find new art and stuff like that for them. So, some of their damage or their abilities might rely on what level of card they are. And even for spells, right? Let's say you want to cast Fireball at 9th level. Spells especially want to go beyond their evolution. I don't anticipate spells evolving as a heads up, that at least not right now. There's a lot of stuff I still have to do for this book before it's ready. So that might be a Patreon tier or Patreon goal. If we reach a certain threshold, I might then have to devote more of my time to making each spell evolve in this game. There's a lot of spells, so we'll see. But next thing, questing / aid. So helping to make the world a better place is what Auromancers are known to do. Many people in the world need help with tasks that they need your help with. So, some can offer money or even cards as rewards for helping them. Rarely, some Auroman may need help with doing something and may ask you to help them, and can even give themselves or a card of themselves as a reward for a thank you. Some examples could include helping a guard watch over his post at night so he can spend some time with his newborn son. And as a thank you, he gives you a guard card from him being not a human, right? Because humans don't have access to Auromon, to the Oru, right? But if he's an Auromon creature, maybe he's like a goblin guard or he's an orc guard and you guys are watching over the post for them while you're traveling through. And anyway, so that's an example. With the guard being sentient, that card can summon an astral version of the guard card that looks like him, but a different entity altogether. This way it's not like, oh, I'm now summoning that card, I'm now summoning that guard later on in battle to proceed to steal him from his family and use him to fight. No. If a creature gives you its card, it's like a copy of it that it's generated from the Oru. It's not it itself. You know what I mean? So, now, obviously, if the creature gives up itself to you and wants to travel with you in your group, it can do that. But usually things just give copies of themselves as like a new variant of itself. So, another example is helping an owl bear get a precious fruit from up in a tree that a bird stole. As a reward, the owl bear can produce a card of itself from its own Oru to you as a thank you. You could also get spells depending on what the quest is set up. You could also get spells depending on what the quest is, but it's up to DM interpretation. And that's where, players, if you bring this book to your DM and want to mention like, hey, this campaign sounds awesome, can we try it? Oh, so it's up to DM interpretation, right? Antes, a lot of things in this is up to interpretation. So you can take this book, you can modify it, do what you like, but I'm helping lay down a general skeletal structure with certain parts to be able to just play it as the book's written. Some stuff's obviously up to DM interpretation, depending on how you make your story, right? Maybe you help a wizard be able to go. I was typing up a thing about a wizard as a spell example, but then got super big, and I was like, nah. So a little Sparks Note version of that. Maybe you have a mission where you have to go help a wizard get a secret reagent from from the woods, let's say, or from the swamp, right? As you're traveling, you run into a cabin in the middle of the swamp that has a hag in it. And you end up having to duel a hag who's an Auroman. So she's summoning black cats. She's summoning all different swamp-like creatures to fight for her. And you guys defeat her. She drops maybe a card if some players roll lucky, right? And then you guys grab the reagent, bring it back to him, and he gives you a spell card as a thank you to each player to help them or something, right? So that's an idea. I realize I did not include anything in this one about if you were to trade a card. I would assume trades are kind of up in the air. I'd like it to be of equal value, right? Meaning players could either just pay somebody in gold the amount, or you could just trade a level 3 for a level, not even level 3, but just like a common for uncommon, etc. And that's where I might put something in about that. I might leave up to player interpretation. We'll see. It depends on how crazy it gets there. But we'll see. All right. Whew, I feel like that was a lot. So those are all the different sorts of ways in this world you can acquire creatures, spells to fight with you, to fight for you in your deck. Because before we talked about the players, right? We talked about what type of class the players can play as. First installment was like the players. Second installment was the type of players, right? The type of people in your play group, either if you're power, celestial, etc. This one was about how to get Auroman to aid you in battle. So speaking of battle, let's go to the battle section, right? Battles. Oh boy. So. All right. The battle section. Throughout your time, so section 3 of the module, right? Page 9. Throughout your time playing Auroman, you will not only be able to collect cards and bond with the Auroman you've summoned, but we'll also be able to use them to fight even some of the most toughest of foes. This segment of the module will break down the details of fighting in battles against wild foes and other duelists, right? Because you can fight other Auromancers, whether it's in a friendly tournament that the Wizard Guild's holding, or it could be an evil dark duelist or something that's corrupting the land, whatever you want to do. Usually I would assume DMs, if you're listening to this too, the nugget of advice that I had an idea of being like, right? Usually maybe your boss monster of the dungeon, or perhaps a big bad evil guy, right, BBEG, to appear later in the campaign that you sprinkle in early for the players to see, is a duelist in some fashion, and they have to be able to beat them, you know, Auromancer, duelist. The words are pretty exchangeable, so. Anyway, first thing, I want to go into battle terms. I have like a whole mini little glossary thing set up here for what I mean by when I say a word here in the battle section and for the rest of the module, so. Battle terms. Some key words to know before getting started in a battle are explained down below. Deck. This is your pre-built collection of cards that can be changed at any long rest from your binder of cards you bring with you. So you bring 10 cards or 30 cards, whatever level you are, right? Because that changes your deck size. You can then change it at any long rest. You can exchange cards in your deck. You're like, okay, so you think, right? All right, so we're going to be going up in the mountains to explore, to try to find this lost mine for the dwarfs. And let's see, maybe I want to bring the create bonfire spell because we're going to be cold and I'm playing the support character. So I'm going to lose one of my spell slots. I'm going to lose one of my spell cards in my deck to put the create bonfire in so we all don't freeze and die at night. That's pretty good, right? So that's where you can exchange, get stuff ready before you go into a fight. So, and that assembles your deck. Now, if you cast a spell that doesn't deal damage in combat, you could still cast the spell. And there's uses for those spells that don't do anything in combat, that are utility spells, and we'll get to that later on in this battle section, actually. Anyway, so that's deck, right? Long rest, you assemble your deck of however many cards, and that's what you can bring with you, and go from there. Drawing. So this is done by rolling on your deck of cards, to see what card you draw. Usually, when a battle starts, you'll roll 2 to 3 rolls to see what cards you've drawn. If you're in person... Yeah, I was supposed to add to this. Whoops. Let me fix that quick. If you're in person, let's see, and your DM allows, you can make your own cards in the deck and just draw them. Right, because that's the general idea, right? You're rolling to draw a card. So if you're an average admin player and you're like, listen, I want to make little index cards. I'm going to take my little index cards here. And I'm going to write the creature stats on the back or print off and just copy and paste the card on the card stats on the back. Put the creature picture on the front or whatever. Shuffle them up without looking and draw 3 cards off the top. And those will be my hand. And you actually want to use the index cards or whatever cards you want to use. That's all fair game too. I am I've got another ambitious promise here. A tier in the Patreon, if we reach it, is I will make mini card printouts for people to use for their playgroups at home of every creature and evolution I plan to include in the game. So, if we reach that tier and I'll have to make it, then I'll have to make it. And then you guys can be able to cut out and print off DMs at home for your playgroup and just have 10,000 cards of paper or cardstock or whatever you want to use to make your deck of cards, you know, and then have players be able to actually shuffle and draw cards and summon them and fight with them, etc. on the playgroup area, which I think could be great. But for now, since we haven't unlocked that yet, and I don't have it up yet, if you're in person and your DM allows you, if you are in person and your DM allows, you can make your own cards in a deck and just draw them instead of rolling on a D10 list of your deck or D12 list of your deck and what have you to see what you actually end up drawing. If you've already rolled that number, such as getting 2, 3, 3, you'll instead just draw the next card in order. So you'll draw your second card, your third card, you'll draw slot 2, slot 3, slot 4 in your deck list, etc. So that way, it's like if on your turn you're going to roll to draw a card, right? And we'll get to that, right? You'll roll your D10, D12, D20, D30, whatever D20 plus 10, whatever you roll, right? By doing that, you'll be able to draw the next card. If it's the bottom of your list and it's 10 and you roll a 10 and you've already drawn your 10, then you draw a 1, right? Pretty self-explanatory. You just draw the next number in line. You just reset and go back up to 1, right? So, all right. Next rule, or next wording, I should say, next battle term, excuse me. Mulligan. This is done when a player does not, successfully draw a creature at the start of combat and thus must discard their hand to the graveyard. This gives the enemy Auroman / S for Auromons, right? Advantage on their next attack. They will, I'll say you will draw, instead of they, right? You'll draw 3 cards immediately looking for an Auroman to summon. If no Auroman, then, I'll just say you again because I keep saying they, you'll think of the enemy. Then you will continue to mulligan until you find... Alright, let's start by doing it right. This is done when a player does not successfully draw a creature at the start of combat and thus discards their hand to the graveyard. This gives the enemy Auromons advantage on their next attack. You will draw 3 cards immediately looking for an Auroman to summon. If no Auroman, then you will continue to mulligan until you find one. So, the only time I can see this being problematic, because the ratio of creature to spells, there's a lot more creatures than their spells, or Auromon than spells in general, right? So, you might mulligan maybe once, maybe twice if you're a mystic class, because that gives you access to extra spells, and that's where sometimes extra spells can hurt you, right? If your deck has tons of spells in it and you have to keep mulliganing, you give the enemy advantage, that's pretty bad, you know? If no Auroman, then you will continue to mulligan until you find one. If this is done multiple times, the enemy gets multiple rounds of advantage. Pretty self-explanatory, right? And that way, DMs, for your players at home, if it's a 3 versus 1 fight against a bad guy or against a wild creature, if 2 of those players have to do mulligans, that enemy creature gets advantage for the next 2 turns. To give them some sort of perk in a 3 versus 1 fight. Right? So, pretty cool. A little balancing right there. Graveyard. If an Auromancer what was I doing? Gets sent to the graveyard, it can only be put back into your deck during that fight with an effect. Certain effects will cause cards to be reshuffled back into your deck, etc. Otherwise, after the fight, it gets put back into your deck to be used again in the future. So after the battle's over, right? So otherwise, after the fight, it gets put back into your deck to be used again in the future. Again, no problem. Purgatory. This is a strange place where Auromons put here cannot be called out of ever in a fight. If an Auromon gets sent here, it cannot be used in another fight or external summons until you take a long rest, right? We discussed in episode 1, actually, external summons is the ability where you may summon a creature for 1 hour out to help you with whatever you need, spend time, bond with them, etc. But if they've been sent to Purgatory due to a battle, they cannot do that until you take a long rest. After a fight, you must replace the missing card from your deck with one from your collection that doesn't go over your maximums allotted for your level. Right. So if you sent a creature to Purgatory in a fight, if your own creature went to Purgatory in a fight, you then have to immediately after that fight switch it out with another creature from your binder, your collection. That doesn't go over your maximum allotted for your level, right? So you can't, like, oh, I lost a creature. Okay, I'll put in a spell. No, it has to be a creature. Can't go over your maximum allotted spell count. You're like, well, what makes something go to Purgatory? I don't want to send stuff to Purgatory. Well, you might want to, and here's why. Release. The next battle term is release. This is when you may send an Auromon you have out to Purgatory, along with a number of cards from your hand to the graveyard, through discarding them to summon another monster in its place from your hand. What that means is, if my guard out on the front lines helping me and my friends fight this goblin, helping me and my friends Auromon fight this hobgoblin, right? He gets attacked. He's looking really hurt. Our Celestial guy, he doesn't have his healing spells right now. I'm going to release him. So, I'm going to send a number of cards from my hand. I'm going to finish reading release too. Hang on. The amount you discard is based on the rarity of the Auromon you are sending to Purgatory. The Auromon you summon may not be a card you discarded. This does not count as an Auromon being knocked out. So if one of your Auromon already got knocked out, your next one you send out is getting a beating, looks really weak, and you're like, if he takes another hit, he's done. I'm out of the battle. My disc shuts off. That's it. Like, the fight's done for me. You can choose to release, right? And you can choose to send that guard to Purgatory. By sending him to Purgatory, let's say your guard is an uncommon card like we were discussing earlier. You have to discard 4 cards from your hand in order to be able to release the guard, which is an uncommon, to Purgatory. Okay? When that guard enters Purgatory, it does not count as a loss for you because your Auroman did not get knocked out. Did not get reduced down to 0, did not go to the graveyard, it did not do etc. to count as being knocked out, right? It was instead released and put into Purgatory. A strange zone that's outside of battle where the card just sits until you take a long rest, then it returns. So until you take that long rest, you'll not be able to get that guard card back. But you discard 4 cards, you release your guard to Purgatory. You now get to summon a creature from your hand that you want to replace the guard. All in that one action on that turn. It's a very different mechanic than I've seen in any... I've played a lot of card games, guys, in my time. Fantasy, real life, a lot of card games. I have never seen an effect like this. So I think it'll be a fun twist. It adds some uniqueness to this from any other card game ever out there, the concept of Purgatory. So, right, you release your guard, you now are able to summon another creature from your hand, like maybe your Pseudo-Dragon, or whatever you have. Or your Aarakocra, right? We'll pretend it's a Celestial guy doing this, or your Aarakocra. So, by doing that, you technically need, I guess, have 5 cards in your hand, because you're discarding 4, to then be able to summon the Aarakocra. But it does not count as your Auroman being knocked out, so thus you're still in the fight. You're not out yet, you sent the guy away. It's basically like getting a freebie, right? It's basically like getting rid of a creature and not having it hurt you, to be able to summon another creature to fight for you. So, figured it was a cool idea to try. We'll see if that gets broken. I don't think so, though. I think that's a pretty balanced, and I think about it, so. Alright. Those are the battle terms that I have so far. As more and more people play with this experiment more, they're like, hey, what does this term mean? What does this mean? If that gets asked a ton, I'll expand the battle terms page. For all I know, this could be an entire 2 pages. But for now, it's just the 3/4 of the left side of the left column in the book. So it's pretty cool. Next to that's the release table. So you're like, all right, my card type that I'm sending to Purgatory was our uncommon guard. Number of cards to discard. Number of cards to discard. Number of cards to discard to graveyard would be 4. So, if it's a rare card, you need to discard 5. If it's an epic card, 6, 7. Because obviously sending higher powered monsters to Purgatory for free and not having that count as a loss for your disc to shut off needs to cost something, right? So you have to remember too, cards that get sent to your graveyard can only be put back into your deck during that fight with an effect. So that way I feel like then that way players get to use their full deck a lot more, right? Because if you're early levels, right? If I quickly scroll up here and talk to you guys quick about something, right? You don't actually get 12 cards until level 5. So to do this release method, you're going to have drawn most of your deck if you want to release something, really, right? Because if you're going to release an uncommon card, you need to discard 4 cards and a 5th card to summon. So this is where those utility spells that players grab, like Create Bonfire, Mirror Image, what have you, can be discarded in this way to be able to help release an Auromon without you having to discard a super strong spell. So that way that those spells even have use in battle to help you. And I just like, it's such a crazy concept, but I think it's really cool. I'm really excited to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this because I'm getting hyped and I'm excited for this. Anyway, that was battle terms, right? Let's talk about the starts. The battle begins. In order for a battle to start, either a player must have their Auromon attack a wild Auromon, get attacked by a wild Auromon, or participate in a duel against another Auromancer. Once that happens, everyone rolls initiative and the battle begins. As the battle begins, if players don't have an Auroman out, their first objective is to summon one. All players will start the battle with drawing 3 cards from their deck. If they have a monster out before the battle begins, they will instead draw 2 cards. If they drew 3 cards and do not successfully draw an Auroman to be casted, they must mulligan and repeat until they have a playable Auroman. We talked about this, right? We talked about that in the definition of mulligan, what mulligan means, right? So, yeah, so you simply just have to mulligan until you get an Auroman you can summon by just drawing 3 cards until you do. So, turn order. After everyone has an Auroman on the field, whoever rolled first for initiative may choose to use their action to command their Auroman to do an action on that creature's stat block, cast a spell from their hand, or command it to do another action that the Auroman could do. Right? Let's be honest. Let's talk about a quick battle scenario, right? You're fighting somebody in a kitchen, okay? In a tavern, and maybe you're fighting a giant rat, okay? You summon your Auroman, and you're like, well, I don't want my guard to try to attack him with the sword in these close quarters. I'm just gonna have him grab a frying pan to try to cover the rat up so that it doesn't cause any more problems for people, and then we would just release it outside, right? So you can tell your guard to do that instead of actually attacking, because that's something a guard could do. Why not, right? So you don't always have to be example, right? In Pokemon, right? You don't always have to be Pikachu, Thunderbolt, or in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? You don't have to be Blue Eyes White Dragon or Dark Magician, Dark Magic Attack, right? So, or I feel in those games, the creatures were really linear when it came to combat, usually, right? They were Pokemon, right? It's Pokemon, all right, do one of your 4 moves. Say it. Anime was good about it. Anime had them break a lot of rules, be able to do what they want, dodge attacks, interact with the environment, etc. Where Yu-Gi-Oh definitely wasn't, right? I mean, earlier it was oh, shoot the moon, and then all of a sudden the ocean goes crazy. Yeah, no, Yu-Gi-Oh breaking all the rules in their own game, season 1, but it was new anyway. So that's what with this idea, I wanted to make it be yes, you can have them do their actions on their stat blocks. You can have them cast a spell from their hand, meaning you could cast a spell through them, etc. And that's explained later here too, and all that. But so if they cast a spell from their hand, they may choose to cast it from their summoned Auroman instead, right? If they have to touch someone, their Auroman may do it instead for them and cast the spell, right? So if you have a spell that requires you to touch somebody to deal them damage or heat metal or what have you, you can have your Auroman, you can cast it through your Auroman. Now you're going to use their stats if they have spell attacks, etc. If you don't want to cast it from you yourself and you want them to do it, that's fine. They just have to use their stats for the spell. It's that easy. So, all that's clarified on what you can do with an Auroman. At the start of everyone's turn, after everyone has control of one Auroman, they may draw a card except for the player who rolled the highest initiative. Usually in card games, whoever goes first doesn't draw a card when it starts, right? Think about it. Or they're always 1 card less than the opponent to start. Every card game I played usually is like that. It's Hearthstone, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc. Usually you don't draw a card on your first turn if you go first, because you get the advantage of going first. So if you go first in this game, you don't get to draw a card in your first turn. On their first turn, since they get to act first, they're not allowed to draw a card. On their second turn and so on, they may. Just want to clarify that, right? Whoever is last in initiative order may draw 2 cards on their very first turn. You go last, so you have to draw an additional card, which you got to realize the power of having additional cards, right? It's okay, yeah, you have more options. Maybe maybe it gives you a higher chance of drawing your damage spell, what have you. But it lets you be able to release sooner if you need to, which is huge. Because for a common card, all you have to do is release 3 cards. That's a starting hand, basically, right? So if an Auroman gets knocked out, its controller must summon an Auroman immediately upon its death, no matter whose turn it is, from their hand. If they do not have one in their hand, they must mulligan until they do. So, let's say your first Auroman you've summoned has taken a beating and you choose to release him. And by releasing him, right, you do your whole thing. You summon a creature you summon an Auroman from your hand. Your hand's now empty. Let's say that Auroman gets critted and is hard and is just obliterated in 1 hit, and you don't have any cards in your hand. You now have to mulligan until you do, giving the opponent advantage on their next attacks on either you, your friends, whatever. So it's also like a team aspect too, right? Because if you're causing the enemy to get advantage on their enemies, because it could be a group of maybe like 10 goblins that are all attacking you, advantage on their next attack, it might not be on you. It could be on your teammate. So that adds more to that team dynamic element to this as well. So that's turn order. That describes what happens if stuff gets knocked out, if stuff fights, etc. Ending a battle. The battle ends for an Oromancer when a player's Oro disc runs out of Oro through losing 2 Auromon in battle. Bosses can break the only losing 2 Auromon rule under DM discretion. So if your players are bodying this boss and the DM's like, listen, I know you guys beat 2 of his creatures, but guess what? He's not an official guild member like you. He's not an official Auroman duelist like you. He doesn't need to play by your rules. Or because he's a non-human character, DMs, you can just say he is channeling some of his own Oro into the disc, and you see his left leg start to get like fuzzy and flickery as he continues to fight, as the disc is sucking away his own Oro from the creature doing it, so that the sentient boss, who's now like losing limbs that are fading away, can still cast cards to still fight against you guys. It's cool, right? It's because these creatures are made of magic, and that same magic, or the Oro, right? Creatures, the Oromons, are made of Oro, and Oro is what's used to cast spells with. They could potentially sacrifice themselves to stay longer in fights, and it gives like dramatic fights and battles and things too. So, anywho, another thing I added, a change log, yay! So some people were asking about that. They're like, hey, can we potentially have a change log? I was like, yeah, I can try to work on that stuff. So here's what the changelog is, right? It's got stuff from March 28th, the first time we talked about the book, and everything I put in the first update. April 1st, everything I put in for that. April 1st. No. April 4th. Why does that say the 1st? Yeah, when I typed this up the other night, I was very exhausted. And I'll have this be the 12th, I guess, because this will hopefully go to you guys on the 12th. To then say, hey, here's everything I put in for the 12th. I put in acquiring the Auromon, everything below that, battles, everything below that, table of contents, and changelog added. So, yeah, and then hopefully next one will hopefully be again on Sunday at noon on 4/18. Hopefully we'll get another installment up. Anyway, I value your guys' opinions a lot, because if this game, I want to make sure it sounds interesting to you guys to play. Because ultimately, like, yes, I can play this with my friends and have fun, but I want to make something and make it like a splash in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and add an installment that people can enjoy playing a different way. So, recap on some things, right? What did we talk about this episode? We talked about all the different ways of how a Oromancer can acquire Auromon, acquire cards to fight with, right? We also talked about battling and battles. If any of that sounded confusing, please, and after you've read in the book too, please leave me, DM me, say something in the Discord so other people can see, so that I know, just of clarification. Because obviously in my head it makes sense, right? If something needs to be explained further in the book, let me know so I can put that. Because you got it. Some days, some people are not going to hear me give all this extra gibberish when they talk. They're just going to read the book and be able to try to understand it from that face value. So, let me know what your thoughts are, if stuff made sense, if stuff sounded good. Are you excited to start collecting cards? What about that? Just seems fun. Does the battling make sense? Does the battle terms, the idea of this purgatory mechanic seem like a unique and fun idea to try? If you know of anybody that does art, or even if you do art and you want to have it be sent to me and I take a look at it and see if it's cool, let me know, so that way I can start putting your guys' art in the book. I think that'd be so cool. You know what I mean? Or if you know an artist and you're like, hey, can you draw this creature for me to be put into this book or whatever? And they're like, yeah. So with that being said, let me know down below, or Discord, like I said, some way of communication. I've been saying that all night, on what you'd like to see next in the book installments, right? Do you want me to start to, now that we've talked about, we're basically done with talking about with the Auromons, with the how to play, right? How to play the game is here. Now we're just missing the extra stuff, right? So technically, I guess you could take those basic deck of cards that each class has, the Mystic starting deck, the Celestial starting deck, and the Power starting deck, And you and friends, you and your buddies at home, you three could fight each other, right? Maybe you have a three-way fight. Each person summons a creature, each person fights. Because now you know how this works. You could make your own Auromancer. You can make your own things as playtesters, right? You can make your own things. Try them out. Let me know. I value any feedback on anything, right? So let me know what you guys want to see next. Do you want to see the first sections of monsters put into the book? Should we see the spell lists? Should we see an overall monster, like, almanac that shows what each monster is, its evolutions, without going into total depth and seeing all the monsters? What should the next installment in this book be chronologically, right? Because we got battling done. We have literally making your character, how the character gets their gear, gets their weapon, gets their cards, get their acquiring of Auroman cards, right? And then we have battles. How to battle, how to fight other people, how to use the cards you've acquired in battles. So should the next thing be what spells each class is only allowed to get? Should the next thing be starting to see some of the, like, starting to see maybe the first tier of creatures, right? The first 0 to 4 level, 0 to 4 CR creatures, and to see what evolutions that they have, at least their names or some of their evolutions or what have you. Just looking for the next direction I should take, like, the next installment. What should the fourth installment of the book be? Because they're almost all here. It's literally just make all the creatures, literally, right? Or only make all the creatures into here that are evolutions. I'm gonna keep the basic I'm gonna save the basic creatures to just have you look into the monster manual, so that way the book's not this thick. This is just the basic creatures of Dungeons and Dragons. So if I'm making a lot of these have 1 to 2 evolutions, I'm not going to put the basic forms of them in there as well. I will save the creature almanac and I will make a list. I will try to put a list of all the creatures and maybe do like a bullet of what each creature evolves into at level 4, level 7. And I will proceed to put their evolutions in the book. So that way it's not this plus all their evolutions. Because that would be a lot. Be a lot. So, as I finish up, last things to say, right? Where I should take the book next. If you have art, or if you feel like being creative and just want to try your luck and submit art and see if I like it, see what's cool, and to have it potentially included in the book, I got a lot of spaces on pages here. I have the whole like right side of page 6. I have the whole like different areas I can include art and stuff. So believe me, I will find spots to put things if people are feeling like they want to draw art and add additions. I love it. I think reaching out to you guys and having the community give me stuff back, I think is amazing. Being able to have your name in a project, I think is just really cool for a portfolio for other things as well, right? So, especially if you're somebody that's into fantasy writing or ever wanted to get involved with this someday, or in the big leagues, you can be like, yeah, hey, like, you know, that look at this published material that has my art in it, you know? So, be a cool thing. Like I said, reach out to me on the Reddit, reach out to me on other things if you want to reach out. Once I get the Patreon finished, we can set that up. So eventually people could, once a month, you guys, if you're on a certain tier in the Patreon, could then be like, hey, Ryan, I was thinking about adding this creature to the world. What are your thoughts? Or help me improve it so that we could include this. I'd be like, heck yeah, I always love homebrew stuff. So as long as it's not like, end the world or what, you know what I mean? Like it'll be within parameters, obviously, for game balance mechanics. So, but I cannot wait to see some of the like mechanics that people have for summoning creatures. Like, for example, right? If you're on the Discord, I'll show that quick. You know of this. If you're on the Discord, you've heard of this. So I'm going to show quick the thing that we talked about in the project channel, where you take your basic skeleton, and as it reaches level 4, it's going to become this here. Open that, bam. So now your basic skeleton, and this is from Wizards of the Coast. This is official art. I believe it's called a Tomb Guardian originally, I think. But instead, now your basic skeleton, its new ability you can unlock at level 4 is multi-attack, where it can swing its short sword 4 times, for example. And this would be the picture to go along with it. And I would have maybe when I have the creature on the almanac of its evolution, I might have it. I'll have a picture of it. I'll have a name of it if I can find a picture and a name. I'll maybe adjust its stats a little bit. If the stats don't change, I'll just say stats don't change, or I'll be like, everything's going to get new HP, but HP increase, if its stats change, I'll talk about that, and I'll talk about an additional ability. Otherwise, it's just the same skeleton, run-of-the-mill basic stuff, as well as having this new ability, having this new HP, having gained this new stuff. So, hopefully with that, on that note, if that seems interesting, like I said, if you want to unlock tiers on Patreon, to have some tiers being like, hey, add in the Dark Auromancer class for somebody that maybe relies on killing creatures to empower their own as an idea and have their own list of spells that they can use from the spell list that they're limited to, and maybe aren't limited by the positive and negatives of the other classes and are their own entity altogether. Like I mentioned before, maybe there's other races. Maybe we want to make our own Auromancer race. If I'll make some tiers where it's like a new background, like background I was thinking when I was driving home today was the Giant Slayer background. They like to use creatures of large or gargantuan level to fight, and they get bonuses to that because they like to slay, they like to fight with big creatures, they like to ride on them in combat and battle in the overworld, right? Because if you make a large thing your key creature, you can then use that thing to clear vast distances over long periods of time. So just ideas. All right, so with that, thanks for all listening to this here, and I will catch you all next week. All right, take care.